or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
And we are back here on Oprah. The results are in from the long-awaited New York primary. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the big winners in New York. Hillary Clinton now holding 1,446 delegates over Bernie Sanders, 1,200. Donald Trump now has 844 over Cruz's 543 and John Kasich 147. Well, the question today is, what does this all mean? And we'll break down everything with our political commentators, J.C. Polanco and Mariah Starr. And also joining us on the phone is a member of the New York Post editorial board, we were supposed to have Michael Benjamin. I guess we don't have him. We'll go with you guys right now. And J.C. says, okay, that's enough. But let's talk about this for a minute. Everybody waited for New York. I'll start on the Democratic side. People were anticipating the fact that the race might have been closer between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Yet and still, we find out that she still emerges with a bigger double-digit lead. Anticipated, not anticipated?
This was anticipated.
No, I got to see the video. Look, last week he didn't say anticipated. He said it was.
Let him finish.
I don't want to hear this. Go ahead.
This was anticipated to a certain extent. Websites like 538.com, Nate Silver, the New York Times' Nate Cohn were predicting a Clinton win. And we've been looking at a Clinton margin of victory around the 55% to 60% margin, and that's exactly how it came out. The challenge, though, is that despite this margin, there are lots of allegations of voter fraud throughout New York State. In upstate New York, districts 20 through 24, and in the Bronx and Brooklyn, with voters calling in saying that their votes have been switched from Sanders to Clinton. So we really can't be sure if the margin is exactly what it appears to be, but that's what it is reported to be right now.
Listen, there was no way Sanders was going to win yesterday. The reality is he has big crowds. He's a crowd gatherer, but he's not a vote gatherer. If you look at what he does,
Just so you can say he's not a vote gatherer.
He's not a vote gatherer. The guy loses everywhere he goes in New York. He lost New York City 65-35. I mean, he has no shot in New York. And the reason is this. A lot of his supporters are blanks on the voter registration card. A lot of them are independents. A lot of them thought they were Democrats and thought they could come vote in a Democratic primary. But when they come to the poll site, guess what? Their name is not on the ballot because they're not registered Democrats. A lot of these guys are young, excited, energetic, but low information voters as it pertains to the process. And many of them are angry. A lot of them don't find their name in the book, so they think it's voter fraud. It's not voter fraud. Nobody's switching your vote from one name to the next. The reality is that Sanders' campaign, he's not a Democrat. He excited a lot of non-Democrats in a Democratic primary. I saw the writing on the wall. I think that Mariah doesn't want to admit, but he was saying that it was going to be a lot closer last week.
Okay, let me do this. Plug your ears in because I got Michael Benjamin on the phone.
Come on, Michael.
We have Michael Benjamin joining us on the phone. Mike, they disconnected their earpieces for a minute in anticipation of not hearing you.
There was no voter fraud. You had a lot of non-Democrats who were trying to vote in the primary. And in fact, they were encouraged by members of the Sanders campaign to flood the poll sites so they can allege voter fraud.
So you're saying that the allegations of voter fraud are not true?
They're not true. What occurred, I checked it out with the Board of Elections, when they checked voters to see if they were active or not last year, many people did not return the cards to say they were active. But if you show up and you vote, you show up and you do the affidavit ballot, your vote will count. So there is no disenfranchisement of actual Democrats or Republicans who are registered to vote in their respective primaries. If you're an independent, you're blank, you're in the Green Party, you're in the Independence Party, you could not vote in yesterday's primaries, period.
For the first time, actually, New York was considered to be a very swing state in this race, particularly in the Democratic race. Going forward, what do we anticipate?
Well, what I wanted to say was that it looks as though, to the chagrin of J.C., I'm certain, that Donald Trump is on a path to amass the 1237 he needs. Pennsylvania has a large number of votes on the 26, in Maryland, a couple other states. He's on a path. He need only take 25, 30 votes, 30 delegates per state up until the major race, June 7th. We had 303 delegates that are out there. By then, he'll be within 200 of the 1237. He's going to walk away with the nomination.
Michael is right. I think that we're in a position right now where Donald Trump seems to have the momentum to get to 1,237. I think that, as I said last week, Governor Kasich has no business in this race other than to guarantee Donald Trump wins the nomination. He has no path to victory. He thinks that he thinks in his mind that he's going to go to Cleveland and 1,100 delegates are going to automatically give them their votes. It's never going to happen. So he's there taking a lot of the never Trump votes away from Ted Cruz, guaranteeing a Donald Trump victory. And you know what's going to happen, Mariah? We're going to have a post-mortem part 2 by the part of the Republican National Committee telling us how we should have reached out to minorities and how we can never let this happen again. That's what's going to happen with the Donald Trump nomination.
Well,
No, post-mortem is
Hold on, let me let Mariah
Mariah
in. Let me let Mariah, Michael.
I think Kasich has a reason to stay in the race still. The results yesterday in New York, Donald Trump way at the top, Kasich second. Cruz didn't even come. He didn't even break 20. Cruz was dead last. Kasich actually did carry the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So you actually have a viable path to nomination if Cruz and Trump are not able to get to that majority. In a contested convention, it is possible.
You think he could get 1,100 delegates to come and support him out of nowhere? He only won one state. You're talking about the Upper West Side, the most democratic place that you could imagine.
In a contested convention, there are people who hate Cruz more than Trump. They don't want either of them to be the nominee. So in a contested convention, yes, Kasich would be the middle ground and the most viable general election candidate. They know that.
There's
I
no
don't
way
think
possible.
there'll be a contested nomination. I suspect Kasich is in it because he's going to be the establishment's candidate to sit in the White House with their President Trump as the vice president. Kasich is running for vice president. He needs to amass delegates so he can then swing those delegates over to Trump and take him over the top if that's what's necessary.
Do you agree, JC?
No, I definitely disagree. Listen, a Donald Trump presidency is never going to happen. This nomination, if it happens in July, he'd be dead on arrival. The Electoral College does not support a Donald Trump presidency. It only supports a part 2 of the post-mortem report by the Republican National Committee. I know I'm on the outs with my party at this point. I know that they completely disagree with me. They think that it's okay for this guy, Donald Trump, to win the nomination, even though he's completely insulted all these different groups, has no clear understanding of politics and the Constitution, and somehow they think that this guy is going to win the nomination and win the presidency against Hillary Clinton. You got to be out of your mind.
Well, it's very clear that he's very close to winning the nomination. So we talked about this about a year ago, and we thought that he would have no shot. We're here right now talking that he's literally on the border of winning the nomination. What is it that is galvanizing voters?
There are 2 elements here that propel a Trump nomination. One is globalization. As a structural feature, it has taken jobs away from the working white and the middle class voters, especially in the Appalachian region, where you see its strongest support. Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia. The other is you have whites dying. Their death rates are increasing more than other groups. They're supporting Donald Trump for exactly that reason.
I feel like I just had one of those Kanye Michael Myers moments with Mariah there. Listen, the reality is Donald Trump's presidency is never going to happen. The nomination is in his sights simply because he's excited a part of this country that I thought had died a long time ago. I mean, the fact that he can go on stage and disparage all these groups and continue winning these primary elections baffles me. I'm as confused as you could imagine. You know, for a long time I've been trying to grow the Republican Party, and I think that growing the Republican Party with a Donald Trump nomination is going to be near impossible. There's no way. However, you can grow it with a different set of characters coming into the party, and I don't think those characters care a lot about diversifying the party.
Michael, I hear you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, JC is actually justifying Mariah's statement. People are voting for him who are Appalachian, who are white, because they're scared. They're scared of what the future looks like, and that's why he's getting the vote, and that's why he's going to win the nomination. It is what it is. Your party's going to have to sort of figure it out, and that's why I believe a moderate like John Kasich will be the vice president to try to level things out. And as the Post said in their endorsement, Donald Trump is going to change and move to the middle, and you'll do that with someone like John Kasich as his vice president to make him appealable to the rest of the nation. We'll see what the Democrats do.
Well, thank you, Michael, for agreeing with me. The other element that's really important
That's
here,
fair, huh?
yes, the other element that's really important here is entertainment, reality television. As a reality TV star, Donald Trump has a name recognition that we can only find with people like Arnold Schwarzenegger in California and Ronald Reagan in 1980. So that is the unquantifiable component that characterizes the entire race. when a reality TV star comes into a race, it shakes everything up.
See, Mariah mentioned Ronald Reagan. Pastor, look, he mentions Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a two-term governor of California before running for the presidency, and had run for the presidency before actually winning, finally, right? Here, this guy has none of the above. The guy has none of the above, and not to mention that Ronald Reagan's positions on policy were clear, they were intelligent, and he was well-learned. This guy's not. I mean, you can't compare these two people.
The one thing that I will say about this that I found utterly amazing is that Trump was able to amass 65% of the Republican vote and still spent no money whatsoever in advertising here in New York. That's something major.
It's amazing because the news media decided to give Trump earned media, essentially free media. The president of CBS News made a deliberate decision to increase the profits for the network by featuring Trump all the time, even when he was on stage. And that has increased the profits for the network. So that has been the driving
JC continually blames us, right?
Over $2 billion. All we do is talk about Donald Trump. You know how many things are happening? But Donald Trump has these cheering crowds, and I sit there and I wonder, what is he saying that is exciting all these people? What inspirational moment has happened here that these people are going so crazy over what he's saying? He's saying absolutely nothing. The man has gotten a lot of support from people around the country for presenting zero details on policy. This idea of globalization. Who's benefited more from globalization than Donald Trump? I mean, think about it. Every single apparel he makes is made out of the United States, from Mexico to India to China. And could you imagine if iPhones were made in the United States as he plans? iPhones would be $6,000 each. The reason why people could afford them is because they're being made abroad. He has the most basic understanding of economics, and he's buffooning people. I can't believe this is actually happening. He may end up winning the nomination. I'm going to be crying here in November when we get slaughtered 400 electoral votes to whatever it is.
Gotta go, gentlemen, but certainly I want to thank you all for coming and sharing. Of course, you can catch them every week here on Open as they share their political views. Michael Benjamin, thank you so much for sharing with us. How are things at the Post?
Things are going well. I'm really enjoying my 2 weeks here. I've had traded to a lot, learning a lot, and I think affecting what New Yorkers think about politics, think about government policy here in New York, and I think I am where I belong. I'm happy.
All right. Well, we'll check in with you and find out if you're still feeling that way in a couple of months. Mike, take care, man.
All right, thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All righty, listen. Got to take a quick break. Stay with us. There's more Open coming up right after this.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.